those kids who, this is talking about kids who, either they aren't learning the content or they're like struggling with it. And we were talking about the kids who like hit that middle ground and then just stop. Like if they don't go far enough one way and they don't go far enough the other way, they just leave it right in the middle.
Right.
And they're like, I'm happy with this. I wanted it to look roasted. And like that.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a kid like that who like makes an excuse for why it looks kind of mid, and then there's the kid who is already very satisfied with what they've done and is like low-key afraid to go further because they're gonna ruin it. Like you and I were just thinking about that watercolor painting, which of course is also not in this slideshow, but it's a student, like a beautiful painting of a hawk on a fence with a very blank right side. So like compositionally, it's got some issues, but she was so impressed and satisfied with the hawk part that she was really afraid to do anything more to develop those clouds that she like started and are fine, but could really be beautiful if she like sucked it up.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that is being afraid. There's a lot of it either because it's unknown or because they're afraid they'll mess it up and ruin it. Like this kid, I just added this one because this kid, he had a great idea. What's that? Same kid, yes, like a front and back.
Yeah.
His concept was great. Like we were talking about negative space, like they need to have some negative space. So we cut the silver part out as the negative space. And then his plan was to put it on the brass part on the back. But then he cut it too small because he cut the wrong line. And instead of saying something right away, like where he could have,
Oh,
and then he tried to like fit it in like a puzzle, but it didn't work. And then he hammered it to try and like force it in. And I was like, why is this happening? Like where did he go that he like stopped asking questions? That he was like so afraid.
Yeah.
Like what would I have made him do that he was like, I don't want to ask questions. I'm just going to hammer.
I got this.
But then he came to this point, and then like the concept is there, and it's challenging. But he, instead of going further, he like stopped. And so I was trying to figure out. And we were actually you and I were talking about this. And like, he handed this piece in, and I was like, this is like that kid. But I was like, is it because I missed talking to him? Like I didn't circle back and I didn't catch him? Or at what point is it him, like he needs to self-advocate and like come to me when he has those questions? I don't know where that balance is, but I feel like he's the kid that he was learning, but he could have learned so much more if he had done something.
And right at that point, once he does that, is there?
It's
there's
kind of
just
hard to undo, right?
Yeah, it's hard to undo, but he could still fix it. And like I told him when I was giving him, like on his reflection, and he wrote, he was like, I made a mistake when I cut it, and then I made it worse by hammering it. He knew it. So I was like, he knew exactly what he learned. Like he knew all the things that he messed up on. And I told him, I was like, if you spent half an hour on this piece, it would look like a different piece. Yeah, I was like, look like a different piece. He wouldn't have, like, no one would know that. Maybe it didn't look the same way that you intended it to, but it would still look so much.
Well, and is he the kind of kid who might do that?
I
Like,
think he
given
would.
that
I think he
opportunity?
would because his ring that he did was like polished to the nine. Like he was like, I loved it so much because I didn't hammer it and smash it.
Well, but that's why this is a piece that demonstrates a kid who is engaged.
Right.
Even though it didn't go so great.
Yeah.
And like his reflections and his effort level, like I, like a little part of me appreciates a kid who like tries to solve the problem on his own.
I was gonna say, there's something to be said for the fact that he like still was trying to figure it out, right?
He's like, I know I made a mistake.
Right.
I'm gonna try
I'm
and
gonna
fix
try to
it.
figure this out.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's still worse. I'm gonna try to fix it again. Here it is.
And then you named in reflection.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and so being able to name it in the reflection is like part of the learning.
Right. So so he totally got it. He understood what he did wrong and he fixed it on his next assignment.
Right.
Like this kid on the bottom one there.
The lazy red one?
Yeah. Again, that was such a great piece, and he pushed himself like that. His idea was so much more complicated, but then he had his torch up way too high because he didn't pay attention to that part, and he burned his piece, and like melted it to the point like where it melted a piece out of it. And I was like, then he finally came to me and asked me, he was like, I melted my piece. And I was like, no kidding. Like, really? Yeah.
Just as an aside, that's one of the reasons why like, first video one class for the first most of the semester I make them film during class so that when something like that happens, like with you, when it's done, it's hard to pull it back, but they can always go back out and refilm the shot. And I I love it when they do, they recognize it, they're like, oh, we can go over and refilm the shot. Sometimes I have to go over and talk to them and explain to them why it is, but that's the best when the kids self-recognizes and sees, oh yeah, we gotta go.
Right,
Yeah,
this didn't go
redo
great,
this.
we have to fix it.
Right.
I'm trying to build that in drawing 2 right now, like we're working on their first, drawing 2 so hard, because it's like, they sort of have the skills from drawing 1, many of them, but we moved the targets, right? So like, the target, I was just telling my students this last week because we were going over their first rubric, like, the target that was a 3 in drawing 1, the same target's now a 2 in draw 2, because we've raised the bar. And so, a lot of them had a lot of 2s on their first project, and they're like, bristly, and like, you know, but I told them, I was like, that's because this was pre-instruction, it was our zine. So, in our first independent drawing, I'm trying to build in opportunities to make them do what you just described. Like, I added an extra step in the planning. Like, it used to be kind of like we all do, like, here's my idea, and like, here's some thumbnails, and like, maybe here's some research, and like, now I'm gonna do it. And I'm making them do a material study where they just practice in their sketchbook with the media they chose, drawing an element of their drawing, just so that they can figure stuff, like, because once you get to this point where you've cut it wrong and you've hammered it, like, there's not a lot of undo, and I think that's when we lose kids who are like trying, but who don't quite have the skill set, because, you know, like, they should be rewarded, like Yvonne was saying, but if they have put a lot of work in and then they find that they're at a place where they can't really save their work, like save their piece without starting over or like doing a lot of extra stuff, then we lose them because they're like, oh, what is the point of this?
Especially at like that kids.
Yes.
The ones that are like already like.
Yeah.
Am I gonna come
Like,
today?
yeah, their skills are, you know, still developing, and so they're not intrinsically motivated to be like engaged, but they're getting there. So I'm trying to build in like steps for success. So that's what I'm hoping that is helping. And then we also stopped and had them do a progress. I called it a critique, but just like a chat at their table where they shared what they have so far, so that there is some accountability to their peers about like, this is my idea, you know, and like, here's how I'm gonna do it, here's my material study and whatever, and then their peers gave them recommendations. Really satisfying to hear today, 2 students who are acting on the recommendations their table mates gave them yesterday. So like, one student had this, you know, classic dock going into the sunset in perspective, right? But the dock's really large and really boring and empty. And so one of her table mates told her she should add like some wood planks texture to it. And so she asked me the correct perspective to make the planks get smaller as they go back. She's like, what would what technique would I need to do for that? And I was like, like, yes. You know, it's like, that's a kid, and she really struggles with drawing. Her work's actually in the presentation, from drawing 1, because like, they're still in these, but it's the one on the top right, which is an example of a kid who's really having a hard time with drawing, but who's engaged in the project as best she can. You know, she's filling space, her drawings are real schematic, like goofy little doodly things, and her double-decker bus has some real drawing issues, you know.
You can tell that she's putting the time.
Right,
Yeah, she's doing all the things.
Right, exactly, and she, just like you were saying, in her reflection was like, I don't think the bus looks right. And I was like, right, but I just,
But the fact that she can identify that it doesn't look right is an
Exactly,
important
right.
factor.
and that's, I love being able to tell a kid like, yep, your drawing skills are emerging right now, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve an A on this project.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
Yeah, I kinda like it.
yeah, right, I mean, like, it's still
There is
better.
some- yeah.
Yeah.
Make it your style.
It's
And
so charming.
I've been stealing your idea of getting like the peers to critique each other like throughout.
Mhm.
That's, yeah.
I did not really anticipate how much harder they would work to prepare for a peer critique
Right.
than for turning stuff into me.
That's what they're
Like,
doing
there's,
right now.
yeah.
Some of the kids right now are involved in a peer critique right now in front of a substitute.
Oh, like,
Really?
like,
Wow,
Yeah.
like right now. Oh my gosh.
So are they, is it 1-to-1, or are they, is it like a class grade thing where they're going around?
Yeah, so I have the 2 AP kids leading it, and then
Nice.
so we'll be working on, and then there's scripted questions, so we've already gone through it. But the only thing I would want to add is that it's the intent, so to draw out the curiosity. And
Yeah.
that's what I've been keen off on this semester.
Which we talked about also, that curiosity piece. And I was telling Kevin, that kid, and I was like, Kevin, I love that you were, you said like you were trying this stuff on your own, and you were curious enough about it to like to try and problem solve it on your own. But I don't know what, and I don't know. And I'm glad that he identified all the stuff that he learned. But like you said, like, I don't know how to keep him hooked. Like he's enjoying it, but I don't know how to keep him hooked. But also help him to be successful before he goes.
Is there a chance to make that project again?
Yes, and I told him, I said, you can still resubmit this. I said, if you spend half an hour cleaning this up, it would be a different piece. We could make it look so much better. And he was like on board with that, but yeah, but it's still like the, I have to do it now.
How often would you say you have kids who actually take you up on that? Because I also offer that to all of my classes, and AP is like the only class that I consistently have kids take advantage of reworking their pieces. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the lower the level, the fewer kids are like,
No,
Yes,
that's true.
yes.
I always
that-
have her too, and I
yeah.
don't have very many.
I would say there's like a handful every semester, but it's not like that.
yeah. I wonder about like the return on investment, so to speak, of their effort. Like, it's, and it's not never in drawing one, but I feel like it's the kids who are like, oh, I could do like 30 minutes of work and get like a lot more points. Like, you know, the kids who are like mostly ones down the board, like low engagement, low effort, low drawing skill, you know, bare bones kind of composition with lots of gaps that are like, well, I see how this works, you know, but I feel like the more work they have to do and or the less they're gonna get from it, like less frequently I find that kids bother that. Yeah, it's like they don't have the intrinsic desire to make their keychain less. Yes, it's like, what's the nicer word I can insert right now? Yeah, less rough.
Poor Kevin. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, technology-wise, for YouTube in particular, probably have more opportunity.
Yeah, Todd, do you have kids rework all the time?
I do offer rework.
But the problem is that once they go out and take the photo, right, then to rework it, it's a homework assignment. It's not like they can do it right there.
The reshoot would be, but like,
Right.
what about kids who you're like, wow, this composition is garbage, and they're like crop and or Photoshop their way to a stronger photo. Do you find that happens a lot because it's easier, or it's still not?
Goes back to what you and I said way at the beginning of this conversation, is that the AP kids and the commercial photography kids are rocking. It's
Yeah.
my photo one this particular year, and I've seen this huge, do I have to do this kind of real negativity? Really, it's due when? I mean, just all of this slush. And I'm sick and tired as a person and as a teacher of blaming it on COVID. But I will say that the freshmen, this particular year, and sophomores are just like, really? I have to really do this? It's been a real challenge. And so the rework isn't seemingly going well. It's really far.
It didn't
Like,
occur to me.
on this project, you can see there's 4 images, and so the kids were allowed to go out and shoot what they saw. And this is what the kids saw.
My house.
Wood grain?
Yeah. So you got a brick wall with wood floors and pots and pans and a green or a door, right?
That's code for like, oh, this is due tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right.
So that was the only requirement, is just take a picture of what they saw.
Yeah.
There's nothing about texture or depth or anything.
But a piece of this, no, so that's kind of, a piece of it was, I want you to pre-plan what you think you're gonna see, and I need you to pre-plan some of your thoughts, so you're not just out going around aimlessly. No, it was a blank piece of paper, they didn't pre-plan it, so we did this the night before. Now, the next time, so this person got a C minus, the same person on the next project filled out, the same person filled out the project sheet talking about the pre-planning with the same ideas as what they could be doing. One, get out of the house, number two, start seeing things from symmetry, and that's what this project was. Oh, they did a much better job, right?
Did they
So
pre-plan
what was,
class?
yeah, what was on the pre-plan?
Oh, so this time on the pre-planning sheet, it says, yeah, I'm going to get out of my house, I'm going to work with my parents and going up to Evergreen. And so they had put some ideas in there, and it came to fruition. So I was trying to build the intent through curiosity, and so instead of just going through the motions of just getting it done, just get it out. So, how would we do it more deliberately?
I think we have to do that. Like, I was telling, I think Shiloh at our Tuesday meeting, that like, I had to change the language from like, make 10, like, mini contour drawings to go draw inline contour for 20 minutes. Like, I don't care if you make 20 really terrible drawings or one really intense drawing, but you're gonna draw that full time. Because I do think there is a lingering mentality from being in like remote learning that you do it as fast as you can and with as little effort as you can, and then you can get on your phone.
So the next thing is that people were coming back and saying, so how many images did you shoot? Well, I have my 4 images. You only get 4.
Right.
You only shot 4 images? Well, I deleted the other ones. I asked you not to delete them, they were part of the project. I wanted to see them, to see what was wrong. Well, they sucked. Well, let me help you.
We want to look at
I
those.
want to see
Right,
them.
that's how you
That
learn.
helps you.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what happened. So, I think it's just interesting.
Well, and again, I would almost say it's like a kid trying to problem solve on their own, and like, oh, I tried to get rid of all the bad things.
Right.
It wasn't a bad thing.
I
You were
can
able to-
show my failures.
Right, like, yeah, that, like, especially not, yeah.
So on this next slide, can I just show you real quick, Seth? I didn't show you guys. Oh, sorry. And this is what I hit them up with now. So creativity, intent, composition, and impact. And then we broke this down as a team. We wrote it down individually, then we wrote it down collectively, and then we did it, everybody did it together. And we really explored this hard. And this is what I was driving with the pre-planning part. So trying to find what does it take to build an effective image? Well, yeah, there are those moments. I remember on Saudi or some of you guys saw the jet
Yeah.
F-18, and that was like a once in a lifetime image. You couldn't pre-plan it. It's a once in a lifetime shot, and you got this incredible shot. But most of the time, you need to get out and do a little bit of pre-planning and thinking and segments and materials and shapes and contours, etc. But so
With
I-
room to improvise for something like that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So I hit this up. This is new, and I've been doing it this semester, and so far it's working for me. But and you could blow this apart because composition is again a part. Stylization is part of the techniques, and there's tons. You don't need.
But I think intent and impact are really nice, like framing for like, because artist voice and intent is in all of our standards. But I've never really separated them out quite like that. Like, not only what are you trying to say, but how are you, like, how is your audience receiving it? That's nice.
Like, so then I went with the Google colors.
It's also really, really
That
good.
part offends my
There's reasons
sensibilities.
why. Yeah, right.
They
Color,
get it back
right?
now.
There's reason for that.
Yeah.
People like that. And there's a lot of reasons.
I think the intent part that you talked about is like something that I'm really paying attention to right now with my kids. Like the kids that are not doing as well are the ones that like, it's almost like in kindergarten when you like grab the green marker, you're like, wow, right? It's like discovering, it's just you're just kind of going where it takes you. And like we, you know, obviously some of us literally like the last time they've taken art is like in kindergarten. So it's like a lot of times we're getting these kids, especially in the year, and I feel like where they're still in that mode where they're just like,
Like tactile.
whoa, right?
Yeah.
It's like still like just like a surprise every time, and then like just trying to get to that next level of like, okay, I'm actually gonna like make these decisions to try to create this specific thing, right? There's like more,
And even if it
like
doesn't
more engagement and
end
more
up
kind of-
there,
yeah.
like that's still okay, but having a goal is a lot different than a kid who's like just reacting to what's in front of them.
Right.
I saw something interesting. I have ninth grade PLCs, which is real challenge. It's advisory. So
Is that what-
Advisory.
that's what I.
Yeah.
I was like,
Hey, who you calling a ninth grade PLC?
And so yesterday.
oh my gosh, we have ninth grade advisor, sorry, I just understood.
So we were given a sheet, there was a circle within, I don't think I can do that.
Oh, it's versus a string?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to color in. Oh my gosh. I don't know if you noticed, I noticed this yesterday. When I handed out to you, you're supposed to color these 3 different colors according to the diagram. They were quiet, and everyone was focused and colored. I thought, this is gonna be a joke. This is gonna go right to the trash can. Nobody's gonna pay attention. Who's gonna be busy coloring this? They were quiet.
Coloring's fun.
It was.
And you can't, it's really hard to be bad at it.
Yeah, but it was just the point that, oh, this is important. So, I did, I spent $75 on my money, bought 25 packages of colored pencils.
Like, you're only gonna color for the next 4 years. That's fine. Good, have fun. So, my images are kind of washed out, but it was kind of just along the same line of stuff, right? It's like the girl on the right, like, really spent time, like, planning and thinking about the whole 360 degrees, and like, okay, if I have this design, I want one on each side, and just kind of really, like, thinking about how she was gonna lay out her design.
Versus the kid.
Right, versus the kid that was like, oh crap, I'm out of room. I better get tighter here. Right, I mean, he started pretty well, like, he was like, okay, I'm gonna make some bands that the design will go into, but, you know, and I have slightly better examples that just came out today, but just the idea of like, just really thinking about things before they touch the material.
And I think letting them know, or like building in opportunities in our classes where the goal is not to actually make a thing, like I'm finding that is more helpful, because like if they know it's like, and I don't want to use the word practice because I don't always take it seriously, you know what I mean, but it's like if it's a purposeful experiment, then that's what I'm trying, because I, you know, practice, then they never take it seriously. But if it's like, all right, test drive, or like you could use a sexier art word like maquette or something to like try to make it sound legit, I suppose. But the point is that it's unrealistic to expect that the first time kids are laying hands on a material or like drawing it. Yeah, but they think they should. Yeah.
Well, they're worried, they're like, well, what's the, if we
Right.
experiment, and what's the grade?
Right.
How do I get
Right.
graded?
If I fail, I kind of want to be like, failure gets an A.
Yeah.
Like, if you
You have to
blow
fail 5
up
times and
this
do that, right?
this experiment, like push it to the limits where you ruin it, then that's an A. But if you're like, I can't possibly make a mistake or I might explode, like, you know, like that's so challenging to get to like undo that kind of thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
So we just, I agree with you, I think we just need to find more ways of like, doing like a 20-minute time limit, and then you
Right.
get your points, or doing something where they have more time to like explore.
Or like, tell me what went wrong. Like, tell me what went wrong and how you're gonna do it differently. And like, if you do that, there's your points, you know, if that's what you're so worried about, you know, because then they learn it. Like, it's like you have to trick them into learning it. Like, earn the points by doing the experiment, and then, oh, whoops, I learned how to not do this so bad the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like Kevin, like my kid that blew up his first.
Kevin's like
piece.
a celebrity now.
I know. I feel like he like blew up his first piece, but he learned everything from it, and then his second piece was nothing like that.
Right.
And it was so much cleaner because he understood all stuff.
Right, so how do you show that in grades, right, that kid learned the thing?
Right, well,
Right,
he-
because his first grade was like,
Well, he learned, like he made 3 rings, and then he like showed them to me, he's like super proud of it. And I was like, Kevin, this is like a different person, like, who are you? But then he's like, well, I have an idea for another one, and I was like, do it, like that, again, it took him that whole time to practice making that third, like all 3 of those, and then he was like ready to go. It was a good idea, and I was like, I don't care what wins done, like, just do it. Yeah, take as long as you need, make it the level that you know you can do.
Alright. Thank you guys. I'm gonna interrupt right there. Let's just take about 5 minutes at our table groups and just kind of chat about what you wrote down, what you noticed about the team culture, how it's impacted student learning, all that good stuff.